Hey everyone. So today I wanted to talk about something that's kind of important to me. As many of you know, I wouldn't call myself specifically a Christian or a denominational Christian, but more messianic. Not a messianic Jew, but what messianic is basically someone who believes in Jesus Christ, or Yeshua, what I call him, Yeshua HaMashiach. However, I don't believe in all the man-made traditions that came through the Catholic Church and Sunday worship and celebrating holidays, specifically pagan holidays. So, for example, you read the title of this video. Should Christians celebrate Christmas? Now, one thing I will say is we are not supposed to repurpose the things that are pagan for worship of Christ. For example, the god Yule. We in Christmas they say put on the Yule log. You hear it in different songs. Well, the Yule log came from a pagan god. For example, also the Christmas tree. It's even in the Bible talking about how they chopped down the Christmas tree and fashioned it and put candles and lights on it. You have to sit there and wonder, why do we do the things that we do? That's sometimes we just accept it because we grew up with it as kids. Our parents had us doing it, and so we develop all these nostalgic memories from this. But sometimes you have to sit there and think, why do I do the things that I do? Um, but Satan was smart. He knew humans love tradition, and they will defend them, especially if family are involved. Deuteronomy 12:4 says, "Do not worship God like the pagans worship their idols." And worshiping God requires sacrifice. Sacrificing, like for example, I'm kosher. And it's hard sometimes. It's hard not to eat pork, especially crab. I love crab. But sometimes to show God that you love him. Jesus said, if you love me, you will obey my commandments. And sometimes even sin, not doing sin is hard. There are sinful things that I used to do that I enjoy. Specifically the P word, that ends with an N. When I was younger, I used to watch it all the time. And so not doing sin, it requires sacrifice. Now, the Bible doesn't say not to celebrate Christmas because it wasn't a thing back then, right? They didn't celebrate the birth of Christ because he was alive before and after he was here. So, the entering of Jesus into this world, yes, he came into this world and he sacrificed himself for us. But he was alive before, he created the earth, and he is with us today. All these people say, oh, I wish that I could see Jesus 2,000 years ago. It'd be so awesome. Why? He's with us today. He's with us in our hearts. Now, if you want to celebrate things, celebrate the feast days, right? The Bible says we are all spiritual Jews. We're grafted onto the tree of Israel. Christianity isn't a new religion that Jesus started. Rather, his presence is the fulfillment of the Abrahamic tradition. Now, I already can see in the comment section, people are going to be defensive of it. And they say, well, I don't do it because I worship pagan gods. I do it because I celebrate Jesus. I worship him and spend time with my family. That's what Christmas means to me. That's what I do it for. First, you can pray to him and worship him every day. You don't need Christmas. Second, how does a tree inspired by pagans, gift giving, and big meals honor God? Let's be real. You do it because you enjoy it. And if you want to, you can. No one says you can't. God is all about free will. But don't claim that man-made traditions and pagan practices are aiding in your worship of God. If it is truly about Jesus, why are you worshiping him on the 25th? If so, he shares a birthday with Horus, the Egyptian god, little g, Buddha, Krishna, the Indian god, Hercules, Greek, Mithra, Persian, Tammuz, Babylonian, Hercules, another Greek. 10 other gods supposedly have their birthdays on the 25th. Now, I'm not going to go into the history of all of these things because there are other channels that do it. But this whole thing, this whole 25th of December, we all know that he wasn't born on the 25th. But this point right here is why atheists say, "Oh, Jesus is just a rehash of other religions and stuff like that. He's not real." So we have to wonder, how did this come about? That point that Jesus was a rehash. Well, the real reason so many gods share the same birthday is because Satan knew from the Genesis prophecy, when it says, when when God says to Eve, or he says to the serpent, the seed of the woman will crush Satan's head, right? That was the prophecy. And he knew that the Messiah would be born of a virgin because the seed of the woman. Well, women don't have a seed, so it had to be a virgin birth, right? So he made sure religions all over the world each had a virgin birth to make Jesus seems like a false and a copycat. That's why he did that. He pre-planned this. He knew it. Isn't it a little coincidental, though, that so many gods have the same birthday? Of course, Christ was not born then, and his birthday was placed there to make it seem like Christian copied other religions. But you've got to wonder, why do so many gods have the 25th as their birthday? It's almost like it was planned that way. You got to think about these things. The only problem is that Satan didn't know that Jesus was what Jesus was going to do after, right? He knew that there was going to be a virgin birth, but he assumed, just like the Jews, he assumed that they were that the Messiah was going to be this warrior, right? And so God kind of faked Satan out. He kind of did a juke move. And Jesus was rather, instead of being a warrior, he was about peace and sacrifice. This is why so many mirrored his birth, but only Christ died willingly for the sins of humans. And you see that in the Greek, Egyptian, and all that, none of them died for their sins. They all had virgin births, but they didn't die for their sins. Sorry if it's shaking, but I'm a little tired. And it's hard to do this in the car, but it's the best way to do it, right? Best way I can think to do it. Now, some people say that Christ dying willingly, he didn't die willingly. He died, he was killed. But the Bible clearly says he could have been saved by angels. He said he could have commanded 10,000 angels to come save him. But he chose not to. The fact that he kept his mouth shut while being questioned by Herod, especially, and didn't perform miracles for him, shows that he let it happen, because it had to happen for prophecy. Now, many Christians, instead of looking at why they do the things they do, are now doing them because they feel good. They use the idea of family and worship to excuse non-biblical traditions, when Jesus himself took little in stock of biological ties, right? Especially if they become a distraction from the true worship. Remember when Mary and Jesus' brother came looking for him, and Jesus said, "Who are my mother and brother but those who worship the Father?" It's all like, this world is just a temporary state. That's what it is. And it's essentially a proving ground. This isn't the final place that we go to. We're not going to be here forever. So Then there's the biggest excuse of all, right? I'm sure we've all heard it. I do it for the kids. I do it for my kids because they love it, and I don't want them to miss out. Especially if they have to go to school, right? And see all these kids getting to do Christmas and stuff. And unless you're a heartless ogre, you like kids having things to enjoy. But this is the wrong way to go about it. Not only are you extending the tradition for another generation, but parents lying to their kids about Santa is one of the first times children realize that their parents are deceiving them. I remember, I mean, a lot of people realize in their teens that their parents have lied to them and they've misrepresented certain things. But at about 7 and 8, you realize, Chris, that Santa isn't real. You realize that your parents did lie to you, and it can be crushing for some. So, but yeah, I think the best way to go about it is tell them that Santa is a mascot for a holiday. That is a representation of a man, of Saint Nicholas, who actually was a real man who used to give gifts to kids. Don't tell them that there's a Santa out there that is out there, riding on a sleigh and using magic. First off, we don't, as Christians, as believers, we're against magic. This whole magical idea that there's a old guy with a beard who attends every house. Kids are not going to buy that, especially nowadays. So don't lie to your kids. And a big reason why you do it, it's for yourself. Yeah, they enjoy it and they think it's cool, but at the same time, you're doing it for yourself too. But the more a Christian invests and defends Christmas, the more they have to explain to atheists how their faith adopted pagan traditions, right? And they still do so because it doesn't make sense. Like I said, with the 25th of December, it's the summer solstice. That's why, or the winter solstice. That's why they had to do it. That's why that date exists. And then obviously in Easter's is the spring. And that's a whole nother animal, right? You wonder why the resurrection of Christ has to do with a bunny and eggs? No, it's a fertility holiday. Yeah, look up the Babylonian tradition of Easter. It's Babylonian. And, you can guess what they dip their eggs in. It's not a good thing. These are all pagan holidays. So, we all have to realize that not one apostle celebrated Christ's birth. This was done by the Catholic Church or the Universal Church. This wasn't something that Jesus talked about and said to do or anything like that. And we all know this, but think about it. Why are we celebrating this holiday? Why not celebrate the feast days, Passover? These are God's holidays that even Jesus celebrated. Right? The Christmas is really from Babylonian tradition. It's really celebrating the birth of Tammuz. So there was Nimrod and Semiramis, and their child Tammuz. Nimrod died before the birth of his child, and Tammuz was Semiramis claimed that Tammuz was actually the reincarnation of Nimrod, and so she was both the wife and the mother of Nimrod. We really need to think about why we do things. And again, I know some people are going to be like, well, I do it because, I believe that it helps me in my worship and stuff. And like I said, you can worship God any day. Let's be real. You do this because you enjoy it. You do it because you have nostalgic ties to it. Because when you were a kid, your parents celebrated it. Think about the presents, right? We give each other gifts. Well, who in the Bible was given gifts? Jesus, when he was a baby. So essentially, it's almost like we are saying we give gifts to each other because maybe it's the idea that we are gods. Think about that. Why are we giving gifts to each other? Because Jesus was born. That doesn't make any sense. The only person who got presents was Jesus himself. And that was because he was the King of Kings. Are we saying we're equating each other with the King of Kings? If you have some comments, go ahead and post them. But like I said, whether it's worship, whether it's family tradition, there are other times you could spend with family. There are other traditions. There are other, other times you can worship him. But worshiping God through pagan holidays and all these different things that they do, it just doesn't make any sense. Now, God gave us free will and we can do what we want. And he doesn't force anybody's hand. That's Lucifer that forces people's hand. I understand it's the holiday, you get wrapped up in the spirit, and it's nice. I mean, I have to admit, even myself, I feel a little bit cheerful and all that. I don't celebrate Christmas myself. We don't have a Christmas tree, no lights. We're getting into celebrating the feast days. And that is really a time for family, and we know that God has ordained them, and they're God's feast days. And that's another thing. Being Messianic, no, I'm not Jewish. People say, oh, you're Jewish, you're celebrating Passover. No, you don't have to be Jewish to celebrate the feasts of God. Jesus turned to the Gentiles. Once the Jews rejected him, now Jews can absolutely believe in Christ and come to him and believe in and do that through believing in Jesus, accepting Jesus as the Messiah. But God turned to the Gentiles. In the Bible, it says that we are grafted onto the tree of Israel, and we're all spiritual Jews. So, no, you don't. It's these feast days are for everybody. Now, Hanukkah and the Maccabees and all of that stuff, that's a different story. I don't believe that the prophets or the apostles and the disciples celebrated Hanukkah. You can correct me on that, but I don't believe that happened. But anyways, this video is getting pretty long, so shoot me a comment. And I'm not telling anybody who celebrates Christmas you're a bad person. But I want to spark conversation, and I want to get people thinking. Should we be celebrating these holidays that were actually Babylonian traditions? Christmas, Easter. I mean, look at Valentine's Day. A lot of these stuffs, and Halloween, a lot of these stuffs came from the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church brought them over. And if you watch my channel, you'll know that the papacy is, I believe the papacy is the beast of Revelation. The Protestant reformers believe that as well. That's why Martin Luther said that that the papacy is the man of sin, the beast in the book of Revelation. But anyways, this video is getting long. I'm not going to say Merry Christmas, obviously, but I hope you guys have a good day. And, I know it's been like 20 days since my last post. I'm going to start getting back into it, I promise. Anyways, I've got a lot going on in my life, and maybe I'll post a video about that. But anyways, I love you all, and I'll talk to you later.